Grasshopper by E.E. Cummings. At first glance, it looks to be a bunch of words and symbols mixed together in an awkward format to try to get to a poem. It does not seem to have an actual rhythm or a pattern or any type of say, as you can only make out a few couple of words. So, at first glance, it does not make any sense and is hard to understand for most people. I myself, as being one of those people, had to dig down deeper and look into what the poem actually means and what it is trying to say. So let's now decipher what the Grasshopper's poem is actually trying to say. Grasshopper deciphered looks to be Grasshopper, who, as we look, up now gathering, into at, he leaps, arriving to rearrangedly become Grasshopper. So how do we decipher this from that? Well, I'll show you. So we start up here. You can easily see it as who, as we look, up now. Now you take the GATH at the very end of this and move it down here to get gathering. Now you get into, at, he, leaps to the S, and then you put the A and the R down here to be arriving to. Now you just read what's outside the parentheses first. We arrangedly become Grasshopper. Now you might be wondering why I skipped two parts. This one, this untransferred word of Grasshopper, and this part of Grasshopper. Well, when we look at that, that's when we're starting to look at what is the poem trying to say. Well, what the poem is trying to say is it's based off of what our definitions. The word grasshopper and what a grasshopper isn't becoming grasshopper until it leaps, and that's when it becomes a grasshopper. So throughout the poem, the word grasshopper is not defined, so that's why it's a bunch of letters. And at the very end, it's defined, because it's not actually a grasshopper, and it's becoming a grasshopper. Off of this, also why we ask, at this next point, we would ask, why is it written in such a manner? Why didn't he just kind of stay, as we look now up, now gathering, as it does look in the deciphered version? Well, there are two reasons for this. One, he most likely did it to make it look like a grasshopper. And the second reasoning is because E.E. Cummings likes to demonstrate that not only poetry can be more related to art than it has to be to music. When you first think of poetry, you think of music, literature as poetry, but also poetry can be an art, a separate entity from music altogether. Well, I hope this gave you a better understanding of Grasshopper by E.E. Cummings, and you enjoyed.